Hello and welcome to Astro Death Charts. My name is Trisha Keith. I am an end of embodiment doula and astrologer. Today we are going to be looking at the Astro Death Chart of Muhammad Ali. Right off the bat, we see a grand mutable cross in the skies on the date Muhammad Ali crossed over, June 3rd, 2016. Pictured here is Ali animating his own poetry. Fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee, black Superman. With the mutable signs dominant in his dying process, there would have been many moving pieces and likely differing voices weighing in on a variety of treatment options. Though with Saturn in Sagittarius opposite the Sun in Gemini, the prime voice of reason, Saturn, would have spoken to the reality of human limits, and the most pressing being the limited time remaining in Muhammad Ali's physical form. Kronos, or Saturn, is the timekeeper, counting out each human's limited number of heartbeats and breaths. Saturn constricts until there is stillness and silence emanating from the body. Saturn brings the gravity of grief and closes the casket, though Saturn is just one aspect of each person's death story. Muhammad Ali was born January 17th, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky, a native Capricorn ruled by Saturn. With Saturn and Uranus conjunct in Taurus in the 10th house, trining his Capricorn sun in the 6th, and trining Neptune at 29 degrees of Virgo in the 2nd, this man would build an empire based on inspired grace from Neptune, practical support and resources from Saturn, and a new set of values and techniques that would challenge the status quo from Uranus. His 6th house Capricorn sun work ethic would change the game with his relentless drive and unyielding dedication. His natal grand earth trine brought him a working certainty of the material world and how to embody it with spiritual values outside the mainstream white supremacist culture. His ability to exemplify his personal, religious, and cultural power in a dignified rebellion to ongoing racial oppression were the principles and traits he cultivated throughout his life with his brothers and sisters. For those of you listening but not watching, I will read the quote from Muhammad Ali. I am America. I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky. My name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me. How fitting for his Saturnine-themed life to arrive at completion under a Saturn-Sun opposition. This setup speaks to an agreement, a contract that had completed its terms. Venus, the love attractor, was conjunct the Sun in Gem in Eyes at the time of his physical death. With eyes closed through his final hours, Venusian energy magnetized his presence. Eyes of love were seeing him as he was seeing love from the inside out. Saturn opposed the Venus-Sun conjunction, turning out the fuse that brought the sparkle to Muhammad Ali's eyes, and silencing the playful muse that teased his opponents. Muhammad Ali's natal 10th house was stacked. His reputation was on the grand global scale. I have already mentioned the Saturn-Uranus conjunction in Taurus trining his sun. Now I'd like to look at his 10th house Jupiter in Gemini, trining his Moon-Mercury-Venus conjunction in Aquarius, landing in his 6th and 7th houses. First theme that applies is multiple marriages. Jupiter, the Roman equivalent of the Greek god Zeus, was well known for his generous affections with multiple lovers. Venus, on the side of his 7th house, flowing with Jupiter vibes, meant there was no shortage of beautiful women in his field of perception. Sonji Roy, Belinda Boyd, Veronica Porcher, and Yolanda Williams, the 4 women he married during the course of his life. Zeus was also famous for his many children. Muhammad Ali was a father to 9. Look at his grand earth trine with his kids, so comfortable in his body with his own blood and bones. Also themed throughout his life was his vocal prowess, Jupiter to Mercury, Gemini to Aquarius, eloquence with a friendly, taunting nature that he and Howard Cosell performed so well for the televised nations. So gifted with Saturn energy, his arena of life was largely within the rings. His dope on a rope strategy to run circles around his opponents fueled and elevated him. The man's gravity was equal to his magnetism. He was the winner before he stepped into the ring. Muhammad Ali's extroverted gifts belayed his enduring and profound internal struggles. Pluto conjunct Chiron in his natal 12th house opposed his sun and moon and formed the cauldron and gristle of his character. The 12th house of unseen or hidden enemies. With Pluto there, those enemies can appear insurmountable. Those enemies would have been connected to the collective unconscious, and he would have felt them so personally and deeply as Pluto and Chiron aspected both his sun, his purpose, and his moon, his personal needs, feelings, his ancestors, and his family. Chiron-Pluto conjunction meant that he would always stand apart from others. This would have been painful for his family too, to watch and endure how he suffered, and to experience a level of untouchability in their relationships with him. Though that separation likely gave him the clarity he needed to make very challenging life decisions. He grew Jupiter to overcome and utilize Capricorn, the Chiron-Pluto energy that at first would have devalued and traumatized him, but ultimately forged the power that would connect him with the spiritual source he sought so deeply with his Savior. With a prominent Pluto, betrayal is always in the mix, as is the stripping away of one's personal power. Betrayal of human rights on behalf of your country, their people, and the government is just one of many treacheries his life served him. At other times, he would have been the betrayer through his own unfaithfulness of his marriage vows. Throughout all of it, he would have experienced great anguish. The 12th house is a place of suffering, loss, enlightenment, compassion, and forgiveness, hand in hand in hand. Ultimately, Muhammad Ali's 12th house, Pluto Chiron, moved him to forge his deepest relationship with power in the non-physical world. For him, that was with his savior, Allah. With a natal Jupiter in Gemini in the 10th house, the question of whose side are you on will be played out in the public arena. Whether the drama is a boxing match, a political rivalry, religious differences, or the breakup of a marriage, there are going to be separating sides that speak their truth. Returning to Saturn in the death event chart as his final earthly opponent, I see him taking a great bow of honor in this final performance between him and his maker. God made me the greatest boxer and cultivated goodness in me. I thank him for his grace. I will go to paradise and would love to defeat all the angels there. With absolutely no hesitation of where he was going, and with all the love, humor, and memories he would take with him, the Sun-Saturn opposition drew the first line of the mutable Grand Cross. The squaring oppositional line co-joined the nodes of fate through the Virgo-Pisces axis. Jupiter sat on the north node, truing the path ahead towards an ever-expanding version of self, while Neptune sat on the south node of what has spiritually matured and now runs on constant release, like water through a faucet in Pisces. When the sun, your core self, is angling the nodes and bumping up against your deeper life direction, that friction is going to show you exactly where and how things are lining up. Paradise is where he was heading, leading for others to follow and becoming. My guess is that his final arc of life was not a confusion of choices, as it can be when the mutables are dominating the sky, but more a distilled singular point that brought him home to his almighty creator. Now let's look at his natal chart and death chart synastry. I always look towards Jupiter in a death chart, being the traditional ruler of both Sagittarius of long journeys, expansions, and beliefs, as well as Pisces, the sign that contains the qualities of the soul's culmination, spiritual lessons and inspiration, loss, suffering, and the eternal vastness. Notice his natal Jupiter in his 10th house conjunct the death event sun, or the purpose of his dying, tightly connected with Venus, bringing an expanded purpose, love, and affection through his dying process. With Gemini and Jupiter here, I think of his 9 children, the 9 siblings, and their experience of loving their father through his final arc of life and ultimately losing him. Look at the death event transiting Moon, representing the emotional field around his passing and his physical form. The Moon had just crossed over Saturn, the timekeeper. The reality of your mortality. His organs were slowing down. The gravity of grief was setting in. Mercury was next to transit over Saturn. His breathing was becoming more difficult. As the Moon edged towards Uranus, his body went into septic shock. Shock and awakening. Uranus. Lastly, I'd like to point out Mars in his natal and death charts. Natally, Mars was in a very powerful position in its ruling sign of Aries. His natal Mars was at the apex of a T-square, squaring both Pluto-Chiron and the Moon-Mercury-Venus conjunction. This was a man who knew how to get what he wanted and what he needed, and he could visualize the actualization of his goal in his higher mind. Mars in Taurus is basically calm and doesn't like to get too complicated or rustled into sticky situations. Taurus wants simplicity, security, and comfort. In the ninth house, that Mars, that action through his fist, is going to have a higher purpose and a set of beliefs that will be tested over and over again, connected to Pluto. His physical and verbal jabs were without complication, fierce and fast. Now look at the death event Mars, also very powerfully positioned in the ruling sign of Scorpio, where no performance is necessary. The inner precision of Scorpio prefers to conserve energy and build it on the inside, only striking if needed. Otherwise, the game is played solo, quietly, in the dark. Death event Mars formed an exact sextile to his natal Capricorn sun, 27 degrees. He found ease in his final release. Death event Mars, sextile, natal sun, trining Saturn, trining natal Saturn, the walls and the limits, and trining Uranus, the breaking free, the breaking through. This concludes my Astro Death Chart for Muhammad Ali. It was a pleasure researching and sharing this with you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my website where you will find a full menu of death care services. Have a great rest of your day.